Marcus Ashford had built his fortune on cold calculations and ruthless efficiency. At 41, he'd learned that sentiment was expensive and compassion was a luxury successful people couldn't afford. His driver knew to keep the partition up, his assistant knew never to ask personal questions, and his ex-wife had learned too late that his heart was as impenetrable as the steel and glass tower that bore his name. The rain had started an hour ago, one of those autumn storms that turned the city streets into rivers. Marcus sat in the back of his town car, reviewing acquisition documents that would eliminate 200 jobs by morning. Just numbers on a spreadsheet. Just business. Sir, his driver said through the intercom, breaking protocol. There's someone on that bench ahead. A woman with a baby. In this rain. Drive on, Marcus said without looking up. Sir, she looks like she needs help. Not our concern. Drive on. But something made Marcus glance out the window. Through the sheets of rain, illuminated by a single street lamp, he saw her. A young woman, perhaps in her mid-30s, soaked to the bone, hunched over something bundled in a red blanket. Her wet hair clung to her face, and even from a distance he could see her body shaking from cold. She was trying to feed a baby. Her baby. Under a park bench in a rainstorm. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. A sensation so unfamiliar, it took him a moment to recognize it as compassion. Stop the car, he heard himself say. His driver pulled over immediately, surprise evident in the quick movement. Marcus grabbed his overcoat and stepped out into the downpour, already regretting this moment of weakness. The rain was cold and relentless, soaking through his expensive suit within seconds. He approached the bench slowly, not wanting to startle her. Up close, he could see she was younger than he'd thought, with delicate features and eyes that held a kind of desperate determination. The baby in her arms couldn't have been more than a few months old, wrapped in what looked like every piece of clothing she owned. Miss, Marcus said, raising his voice over the rain. You need to get out of this weather. She looked up at him with wariness that came from too many disappointments. We're fine. Please leave us alone. You're not fine. You're both soaking wet. That baby could get hypothermia. Marcus held out his coat. At least take this. I don't need charity, she said, but her voice shook with cold. The baby made a small cry, and Marcus saw her face crumble for just a moment before she composed herself again. It's not charity. It's common sense. Marcus knelt down, heedless of the water pooling on the ground, and looked her directly in the eyes. My name is Marcus. I'm not going to hurt you, but I cannot in good conscience leave a mother and infant out here in a storm. Please, let me help. Something in her expression shifted. Maybe it was the fact that he'd knelt in the rain, ruining his probably $1,000 suit. Maybe it was the genuine concern in his voice that surprised even him. Maybe it was simply that she'd reached the end of her strength. Iris, she whispered. My name is Iris, and this is Emma. She's 3 months old. Hello, Iris. Hello, Emma. Marcus gently draped his coat over both of them. I have a car right there, warm and dry. Will you come with me? Just to get out of the rain. We can figure out the rest after. Iris hesitated, clearly weighing the danger of a stranger against the danger of the storm. Finally, she nodded. Marcus helped her stand, steadying her when she swayed slightly and guided them to the car. Once inside, with the heat running and towels his driver had miraculously produced, Iris began to thaw. The baby Emma had stopped crying and was looking around with curious eyes. When did you last eat? Marcus asked. Iris's silence was answer enough. Marcus instructed his driver to take them to his penthouse rather than his originally planned destination, a charity gala where he was supposed to give a speech about corporate responsibility. The irony wasn't lost on him. At his apartment, a sprawling space that suddenly felt obscenely large, Marcus set Iris and Emma up in the guest room while he ordered food from 3 different restaurants, unsure what she might need. His housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, appeared with dry clothes and the kind of efficient compassion that came from years of experience. Iris emerged an hour later, clean and dry, holding Emma, who now seemed content and sleepy. Marcus had changed into casual clothes and stood awkwardly in his own kitchen, realizing he had no idea how to be around people in his personal space. Thank you, Iris said softly, sitting at the kitchen island. You didn't have to do any of this. Tell me what happened, Marcus said, surprising himself again. He never asked personal questions, never got involved, but something about this woman and her baby had cracked through his carefully maintained walls. Iris's story came out slowly, painfully. A husband who'd died suddenly 8 months into her pregnancy. No life insurance. Medical bills that consumed their savings. A landlord who'd evicted her when she couldn't make rent. Family who'd cut her off years ago over her choice of husband. Friends who'd gradually disappeared when she had nothing left to offer. I had a job, she said, her voice breaking. Part-time at a grocery store. But I couldn't afford childcare and they wouldn't let me bring Emma. I've been staying in a shelter, but they have a lottery system for beds each night. Tonight we didn't get one. I thought we could wait out the rain under the bench, and then in the morning I could figure something out. Marcus listened, really listened, in a way he hadn't listened to anyone in years. This woman had lost everything, every safety net, every support system, and yet she'd protected her baby, kept going, maintained her dignity even while sitting soaked under a park bench. What did you do before? He asked. Before all this, I was a graphic designer. Freelance mostly. I was good at it. She laughed bitterly. Seems like another lifetime ago. Marcus made a decision that would have shocked his business partners and stunned his ex-wife. I'm going to help you. Not just tonight. Really help you? Iris shook her head immediately. I can't accept that. I don't even know you. You don't have to know me. You just have to let me do something decent for once in my miserable life. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustrated at his own awkwardness. I run a company, Ashford Technologies. We need designers, good ones. I can give you a job with fair pay and benefits. I own this building. There are empty units. You and Emma can have one. No rent until you're on your feet. Why? Iris asked, tears streaming down her face. Why would you do this for a stranger? Marcus thought about that question. Thought about his empty life, his failed marriage, the way he'd turned himself into a machine that generated wealth but couldn't generate meaning. Thought about how he'd been planning to drive past her without a second glance. Because I've spent 20 years being successful and 0 years being good, he said quietly. Because I looked at you trying to feed your baby in a rainstorm, and for the first time in longer than I can remember, I felt something besides ambition and anger. Because maybe helping you is actually helping myself figure out what kind of person I want to be. Iris studied him for a long moment. I'll take the job, but I'll pay rent as soon as I can. And this doesn't mean you own me or my gratitude. I'm accepting help, not charity. There's a difference. Marcus smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. Deal. Over the next weeks, something unexpected happened. Iris proved to be as talented as she'd claimed, quickly becoming invaluable to his design team. Emma became a fixture in the office, with Marcus's previously intimidating employees cooing over her during breaks. And Marcus found himself spending less time in boardrooms and more time having coffee with Iris, talking about everything and nothing. She challenged him in ways no one dared. Called him out when he was being cold. Made him laugh at himself. Showed him that success without connection was just expensive loneliness. You're not as cold as you pretend to be, Iris told him one evening, 3 months after that rainy night. They were in his office, late. Emma asleep in a portable crib they'd set up. You're just scared. Scared of needing people. Scared of being vulnerable. Is this your professional opinion? Marcus asked, but without his usual edge. It's my observation as someone who lost everything and found out that needing help doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. She looked at him directly. You saved us that night. But I think maybe we're saving you too. Marcus felt his carefully constructed walls crumble completely. I've been in love with you since that night, he admitted. Watching you protect Emma in the rain, refusing to give up even when you had every reason to. You're the strongest person I've ever met, and the kindest. And I know I don't deserve you, that I'm too damaged and cold and set in my ways, but... Iris kissed him, silencing his self-deprecation. When she pulled back, she was smiling through tears. You're not cold. You're careful. There's a difference. And yes, you're a bit damaged, but so am I. So is everyone who's lived long enough to have scars. She took his hand. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for honest, for someone who will show up in the rain when it matters. You did that. You keep doing that? They built something together after that, slowly and carefully. Marcus learned to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to value connection over conquest. Iris taught him that strength sometimes looks like admitting weakness, that success means nothing without someone to share it with. A year later, Marcus proposed on that same park bench in another rainstorm, because some moments are worth recreating. Iris said yes, while Emma, now walking and babbling, splashed happily in puddles wearing tiny rain boots. The cold CEO who'd built an empire on ruthless efficiency had discovered something far more valuable. That compassion isn't weakness, that stopping to help someone in need can change two lives, and that sometimes the greatest success is measured not in acquisitions and profits, but in moments of shared humanity on rainy nights. Marcus had found a woman feeding her baby under the rain, unaware she'd lost everything but hope. What he discovered was that hope is everything, and that helping someone find their way back to solid ground can show you the way to your own redemption. Sometimes the most important business we conduct has nothing to do with business at all. Sometimes stopping the car, stepping into the rain, and offering your coat to a stranger is the decision that transforms your entire life. And sometimes, when we open our hearts to someone else's struggle, we discover that what we thought was charity was actually grace, freely given and freely received, changing everyone it touches. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below about a time when helping someone changed your own life. Your stories inspire us all.